Today's date is July 18, and my time is 8:38. For the record, the members present are Commissioner Simon Sanchez, Commissioner Pedro Martinez, Commissioner Francis Santos, and appearing via go-to meeting is Commissioner Mike Limchaco. Please acknowledge, Mr. Limchaco, that you're on air. Commissioner Limchaco, please acknowledge. He's there, right? Commissioner Jocko, can we just hear you say yes, that you're present? Hold on, we're having some technical difficulties.
I'm sorry, I had to adjust my speakers. Were you guys addressing me?
Yes, we just want to make sure that you're here and we can hear you now, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn it over to the GM, Mr. Miguel Verdallo. Let's start.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we get started with the agenda items, I just wanted to introduce our new Assistant General Manager for Engineering, Jeanette Babauta Owens.
Oh, welcome. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay.
You'll be busy.
So I want you to.
Not yet. You don't have to run the meeting yet. So for the purposes of our issues for decision, we have 7 listed on the agenda. We will be tabling 2. So
Which ones are we tabling? Number.
agenda item 2.1, which is 18
Okay.
FY 2023,
And.
2.6, which is 36 FY 2023.
All right, thank you. Proceed.
So the first issue for decision is Resolution 29, FY 2023, and this is seeking approval for the construction contract for the Ugam Reservoir Number 2 project. This will also include potentially the refurbishment of Ugam Reservoir Number 1, the existing reservoir. So this is, as you know, part of our court order requirements. One of the last 3 concrete tanks that needs to be constructed. So for this project, we are looking at 2 million gallon concrete reservoir, the new construction, and then the repair to the existing steel reservoir, also 2 million gallons. Both are located at the Ugam Surface Water Treatment Plant in Iran, and the winning contractor for this is AIC International. Their bid was $22.8 million, and we're seeking that amount with a 5% contingency of 1.14 for a total authorized amount of $23.976 million. Once we complete the construction of the new reservoir, then we can confirm the repair scope for the existing steel tank after it's been taken offline and inspected. But for now, we've included a $3 million placeholder for the major repairs that would be required. So the contract is expected to take 515 calendar days.
Questions, Commissioner?
Nope, good project.
And no questions.
Any questions, Commissioner Jocko?
No questions.
Thank you.
Okay, next is legal resolution. So I'll turn it over to.
Good morning, Commissioners. On the agenda, Commissioner Limtiaco, can you hear me? Okay. So on the agenda
Yeah,
is
you're coming. There you go. That's much better.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning. On the agenda is resolution number 32 FY 2023. That's relative to the approval and ratification of conflicts/legal counsel fees pursuant to RFP 2018-01. There was supposed to be a hard copy passed out this morning, but had some technical difficulties at home, so I couldn't get that completed, but I will have. That's right. So I'll get that submitted to the commissioners before the regular board meeting next Tuesday. But just as an overview, this is a resolution seeking ratification and approval of legal counsel fees for GWA. So GWA entered into contract pursuant to RFP 2018-01 with the law offices of Vincent Leon Guerrero, and for the entire term of the contract, about just a little bit more than 5 years, GWA has expended $1.4 million. The $1.4 million exceeds the GM's approval authority of $1 million. So we're bringing it to the board to ask that the amount be ratified. And then because we do have ongoing litigation and we still have a retainer agreement under this contract for the Quartet case, we are going to ask the commissioners to approve an additional amount of $1 million. And so, so we can come back to the board, I guess, when legal expenses come up to that amount. So I don't have anything in writing, but that's essentially what the resolution will cover, and we can discuss more in detail, and you'll have it in board books well before the regular board meeting. Okay.
Question? Side note. So can you look into, I know your current limit is 1 million, please, to align that with what we're doing with Benedetti? We have the same level of margin. I think that's being in good, he and I had spoken during the, right after the typhoon, emergency authorization, higher spending limits, so you don't have to convene a meeting at all. But I'm sure he's working on a resolution, but trying to get clarity on what you and John B.
Does the board also wish that we pursue similar limits with the Public Utilities Commission for the contract review protocols?
Yeah, that would make sense. That sounds sensible.
Okay.
So it's all aligned in the same.
Yeah, or at least inform them, right? Because not all your spend in that authorization is something that has a rate impact that you got to run to the UC per se, right? So I think you're just really informing them that. Actually, the more I think about it, unless it impacts rate, I'm not sure. As a courtesy, we can inform them, but I'm not sure from an operational point of view.
No, there is an order that requires us, if it's over $1 million, to go to them. The only exception to that
For the contract approval. Right.
procurement approval
Right.
and contract.
Right. Oh, even procurements well, a procurement reapproved turns into a contract, though, right?
If we know at the time that we are going to procure something that it will be more than $1 million, we are required to
go to
seek
them,
their
sure.
Okay.
approval
Okay.
prior to.
Just bring it up then, okay.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on.
Hold on. So that's going to be on the board books.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 2.4. This is Resolution 34, FY 2023. We are seeking contract approval for a design and construction management services for water and sewer line replacements at various bridges located throughout the island. Project we are contemplating will provide assessments for all of our infrastructure that is crossing at these bridges, and there are, I believe, 30 island-wide. Once the assessments are completed, any design for refurbishment or rehabilitation of our infrastructure to make sure that it is not at risk from failure or collapse will be conducted, and then at that point we'll have design plans ready to put out bid for the construction of these improvements. So the total estimated cost for design NCM services at these 30 sites is $1.232 million, and we are seeking the standard 10% contingency of $123,000 for a total of $1.356 million. That works out to be around $42,000 or $43,000 per site, if I'm not mistaken, for design NCM service. We anticipate this will be 365 calendar days for the effort to be completed, and we are planning on using bond funds, specifically our pipe rehabilitation and replacement program and other applicable CIP line items as we move forward with the project. There were 17 interested parties that selected or that picked up the request for proposal packet, and 6 submitted packages. Prior to the middle deadline of those 6, they were evaluated and scored. Top 3 were provided to me for recommendation. for award, and we proceeded with negotiations with the top-ranked firm, GHD. So we're seeking your approval to award the contract.
Questions, Commissioners?
That's good.
Yeah, sorry about that. You mentioned awarded to GHD as a top-ranked firm. Well, was there a price differential, or would they also be the lowest?
For these RFPs for engineering services, it's qualifications-based selection. So their top ranking is based on their qualifications to perform the specific scope of work. Once the top-ranked firm is selected, we enter into fee negotiations only with that firm, so there is no comparative price for professional services in accordance with Guam procurement law.
Okay. Thank you.
So next on the agenda is Resolution 35 FY 2023, and this is seeking approval for year 3 of our water loss control professional services contract. If the board will recall, as part of the PUC's February 2020 rate decision and order, we were required to conduct a water loss control analytical study. We had already been doing some of this work on a pilot scale for the DMAs, but we, in accordance with that order, procured professional consulting services for a water loss control program development. They completed the analytical study, and then we proceeded with a 3-year implementation program for our district metered areas, which is an integral part of our water loss control program. At the time that we put this out, initially, all 3 years of the implementation were estimated to be under $1 million, so my procurement authority was sufficient. However, because of inflationary pressures after the first 2 years, when we received the year 3 proposal, it put us over the $1 million mark, and that's why coming to you for this task order for authorization, and then also for your permission to take this before the PUC if required under the contract. So the first 2 years totaled about $785,000. The cost for year 3 is estimated at this point at $422,000, bringing the total contract amount to $1.2 million. We anticipate that year 3 will be completed around August of 2024, and this is coming out of our O&M funds.
Questions, Commissioners?
Straightforward.
Next.
Okay, the last item up for issues for decision is Resolution 37 FY 2023. This is seeking the board's approval to establish the position in our certified technical professional listing for the electrical section, the position of electrician supervisor. This is not a position that we currently have in our CTP listing. We have electrician 1 and electrician leader, but we are missing the electrician supervisor position, and the operations division feels this is absolutely necessary in order to promote efficient operations within the electrician section and to better manage the work that we have on hand. We did post the position, so it's been up for the requisite number of days. The job standards and salary range is based on the 20th market percentile, but the 2017 market data. So the numbers that you see before you here for the pay range, minimum of 70.5 thousand per annum and 73.4 per annum. Once the board provides its approval, then we'll wait the requisite number of days, submit it to the legislature, and then begin recruiting for the position.
How does this match up with?
I think it should be on the same pay scale. Sometimes there's a slight variation in salary, but it should be on the same pay grade as GPA.
Questions, Commissioners? Okay, we go to Jim.
we can go on to the management report.
Yep.
What page?
Uh,
Just make sure everyone have it.
This is on page 10 of the board book.
10 or 65? I got management report on 65, management report on page 65.
Okay, sorry.
No problem,
65.
no problem. We're on the same page now.
So beginning with
Different
production,
number, but same page.
for May of 2023, our deep well production was at 31.4 million gallons a day for the month. Total production, including all sources, Springs, Ugam Surface Water Treatment Plant, and Tumal Maui, was at 34.3 million gallons a day for the month of May, with a total production of 1.064 million kgals, which is, you'll see, lower than
Average.
the average for the rest of the year. The
Is that-
numbers
is that
that,
Marwar? Is that some
Yes.
impact of Marwar?
yeah, so the last 6 days or so in May, we had reduced production, and so that's why the numbers go down. And you can see the deep well status as of 5/31 here on the chart. 60 wells were active at the end of the month, 33 were offline, we had 16 grounded motors. So this roughly corresponds with what we were tracking throughout the storm, and in the August meeting, we'll give you a more detailed after-action report. But as of grave shift today, we had 94 wells operating at about 33.2 million gallons a day, and we are down to one asset on genset. All others are on island power, but at least as of grave, that may fluctuate throughout the course of the day. But that essentially is what our production looks like. You can see on the next slide, Tuman Maui wells production, and as expected on the date of the typhoon, we see that take a dive and then it gets back up and running. And towards the end of the month, we actually increase over our normal production rate based on our coordination with our Navy partners in allowing us a temporary increase in production for Tuman Maui and one other well. I don't have a production report for June. We're still trying to work through some of those numbers, so we'll have that for you the next meeting. But on the next slide, the distribution system, our water booster pump station operability remained at 96.9% for the month of May. And then took a dip slightly, as expected for June. In the recovery, we were down to 93.8% operability on all of our water pump stations. On the distribution system tank levels, you can see the effect of Typhoon Mawar for the May chart on the 24th through the 25th. Tank levels essentially dropped to near zero, and it took us up until the end of May to see some improvement and some gain as we restored production capacity. And then that, on the next slide, you can see extends into the early part of June, but we started to see by June 9th or 10th some good increases in southern tank levels, returning us essentially to normal, and then also improvement towards the latter half of June. And I will say that on the 23rd is when we kind of declared that the system was stable and we were fully recovered. And then on the 24th, the precautionary boil water notice was lifted island-wide on the 24th. So you can see those tank levels still not where we would like them to be, but closer to pre-typhoon conditions and indicative of stable distribution. For the next slide, for wastewater collections for the month of May, our pump station operability went down slightly to 85.6 island-wide, and then in June down to 84%. The continued impacts of Typhoon Mawar and the recovery, and the problems that it caused for some of our pumps and pump stations on the wastewater collection side. There was also an impact to our CCTV inspection and sewer cleaning program. We saw decline numbers in May and in June, although we're still tracking close to our monthly average needed in order to meet the annual requirement. So I'm not too worried about make that up. For wastewater treatment, a significant decline in June, on the sludge produced. For May, we had about 558,000 pounds of sludge produced and disposed of at a cost of around $50,000. And then for June, that was in May, and in June, we had 326,000 pounds of sludge. The disposal cost there was about $29.3 thousand. You can see the average flows for May and June also declined, as mostly that was from our Agania wastewater treatment plant. The decrease in flows in northern districts stayed pretty stable, and Agate Santa Rita also was stable. In fact, there was a lot of wet weather flows as expected.
It's sort of a scary thought. So where did all that wastewater go during the typhoon?
So
It didn't go if you didn't create the floods through the wastewater plants, kind of where did it go?
naturally there was less water, wastewater coming through the pipes because there was less water being provided. Not everyone had water. However, there was a lot of SSOs, and we'll see that in the compliance and safety section of the management report. We have just the bare numbers, but we'll give you a detailed accounting of that in the August meeting, and it will not be pretty. But in all cases, these SSOs have been reported to USCPA as required, and they are aware. We're tracking it throughout the recovery process.
When you do the analysis, and I'm grateful that you, and I'm sure John will as well, I know for Ponks on Wa, we had significant SSO issues, and I'm just curious, are you able to do a comparative, and is that a useful analysis, 20 years later? Because that's really the only comparable we have is Ponks on Wa, right? But I know when you do the
Not being around then, I'm not sure how the data was tracked, but whatever is out there that we can get,
You'll
we'll
compare.
find, and if we can provide a comparison in the August.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, moving on to the asset management numbers through June. Our PM to CM ratio was at 76% preventive maintenance and 24% corrective maintenance. For the completion, out of the 24% of corrective maintenance, 97% of the work orders were completed. And for preventive maintenance, out of that 76% PM work orders, 89% was. In terms of corrective maintenance, for leak repair, that was 54% of all corrective maintenance work orders, and for equipment, that was 46% of all corrective maintenance work orders. And of those two respective numbers, for the leak repairs, 96% were completed, and for equipment, 97%. Moving on to the next slide, our One Guam update. There is a little bit of information there on the Tuman Maui well. We are still waiting on DoD real estate for our leases and licenses for 2022. They have proposed a change in inspection from quarterly to a semi-annual basis, so our next inspection should be this week. And we did make a request for both Tuman Maui well and AG1, both of which are under license, for a permanent increase in production rates to the Guam EPA permitted levels for both facilities. Those requests have not been acted on, but during the recovery, we did receive temporary permission, a 30-day allowance for us to increase production to assist us with the recovery. Those facilities, we did ramp up production for the 30 days, and then we're back to previous production rate.
Miguel, is there a reason they cap the load you can put on those wells, or operational reason we do that?
It's just part of the condition of the license agreement. The Guam EPA permitted levels were based on the original, applications for these facilities. And they are still in place, and they are higher than the production rates that are included in our license agreement.
You're going to try to reconcile that eventually?
That's what the permanent request is for. I think there isn't necessarily a technical reason why it cannot be done, but it's just going through whatever process the Navy has, and it's not been acted on yet. And
Yeah,
so
so-
I think this will include both Navy and Air Force, actually.
And why would they, I know we kind of had to go through the proof of concept, Tuman Maui well, can we run it, maintain it? I'm just curious why they would put a cap on production if that's the capacity of that well.
It's not much, it's not very far off
Oh, okay.
from, so it's not like it's hampering us. I think for
Okay.
Tuman Maui, the intent was to allow us to draw from Tuman Maui and then take some of our production facilities that were higher in chlorides to give those a rest.
Right, reduce
And
those.
so those ones normally would be placed on stamp.
Okay. But you're now working to basically let us take it over, we can run it, and we'll run it to the maximum capacity that your operations are comfortable with, and we're pretty much close to what it can do.
Yeah, and we're typically don't need more than 1 million gallons a day, but having that extra operational flexibility, as Typhoon Mawar showed, if something else goes down in the area and reservoir levels in the Tuman tuning area are affected, having a little bit of extra at Tuman Maui
Perfect.
helps.
Thank you.
So there are some other property issues with regard to the Navy that are kind of all stalled. We wouldn't expect any movement over the last couple of months just because of the other issues that we've been facing. But there are some additional transfers that we are anticipating coming down. And then for projects for interoperability and collaboration, GPA has expressed an interest in obtaining the Navy's water line down at Cabras, and then potentially transferring it to GWA. We were asked about this previously. We did not accept it just because of the condition of the infrastructure. But I'm not sure if GPA intends to acquire it, rehabilitate it, and then turn it over for us, but they'd like having the alternative sources in the event of emergency. And we certainly agree with that. We just didn't want to take on structure that wasn't up to par. There are potential military connection requests that may be coming down the pipe. We've had discussions about that for facilities that may require both water and wastewater. We still don't have a clear picture on loads or exact locations, but we're continuing to work through that, including coordination that would be needed to model the loads, sewer loads, and water demand. And then there is some collaboration ongoing with the Navy on treatment technologies for PFAS. They're conducting some studies that they said they were willing to share information with us for potential treatment technologies that we both take advantage of. So we're interested in that, as well as pursuing some of our own preferences with respect to potential treatment technologies, but we're not far along as
That's the next gorilla in the room.
that's right. Moving on to the court order summary, really no change here. So, just maybe one item to note on the court order item, the district court did issue an order granting our request to extend the completion deadline for the tanks remaining, and so that is now on record. We are out the end of
The ones we just approved.
one. The other two are pending, so I think that one
Okay.
might be one of the ones that we're. UGM is what you were briefed on today. You will approve hopefully on Tuesday. 2 more tanks, 1 contract.
Yep.
So that'll be the next with the concrete.
Then we get the new list.
There is really no movement on any of the land acquisition issues here, so I'm just going to skip over that. For the leak repair, reported versus repaired issues, you could see towards the end of May, we did exceed our target. We had some, obviously we were responding to a lot, and so we may have exceeded try to keep it below 20, but for our backlog, but that was understandably, we're back on track for that. That concludes the my portion of the GM report, and Chris can go over receipt.
Good morning, Commissioners. For accounts receivables greater than 60 days for the month of May, for residential customers, we saw a spike of 906 residential customers, an increase. The total additional receivables due from those 906 went up by 182,172. So although the number of customers went up, the amount was not as significant as what we saw during COVID. For June, we also had an additional 590 increase to May, and that accounted for 135,309. So I think people are kind of struggling with their bills, trying to understand, why their bills look the same as they did maybe the previous month, even though some may not have had water. So we've been fielding a lot of calls with customer service, explaining different things to them. And I'll go over a couple issues related to that with bill estimation in a couple slides later. For the commercial segment, we had 36 businesses increase in May compared to April, for a total of additional 54,000 in receivables due past 60. June, we saw improvement. Although there was 49 more businesses that were in arrears past 60, the total amount due went down by about 15,000. On to the customer service highlights for the month of May. Wait times in the 3 locations were at about 3.5 minutes, which is lower than what we saw in April, which was 5 minutes. The 3 customer service lobbies were closed on May 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, and also on the 29th for Memorial Day. So this is about 32 hours of operations that normally would occur during the month that didn't. So across the board, statistics are down across the board in most areas of servicing customers. Our Facebook page had a 956% increase in visits in the month of May, and our Instagram had an increase of 1,100%. Field activities during the month were down, mainly because we were focused on restoration for customers. And then last bullet on the May highlights, the bill cycles 18 and 19, which is about 3,924 customers receive estimated bills. 2,123 of those customers on bill cycle 18 are in Jotnia and Talafofo, and the remaining 1,801 in bill cycle 19 are Windward Hills, Baza Gardens, and Santa Rita area.
And they were estimated because we couldn't, that's typhoon related, we couldn't get to
Correct.
the readers. Okay.
So the readers couldn't get out and read those bills on time, so we chose to estimate the bills, and then they'll be trued up in the following month.
With the next read. Yeah.
Correct.
Perfect.
Highlights for the month of June.
They got the water.
Not a whole lot changed in June. We had emails activity doubled during the month of June compared to May, and that was primarily typhoon related inquiries. Facebook and Instagram views were up as well. I will add our customer service reps, for the most part, tried to respond to messages in email, Facebook, and Instagram on a 24-hour basis. We probably didn't cover midnight to 6 consistently, but for the most part, they were up until 10 p.m. every night responding to customers' inquiries.
Someone's going to expect to respond, isn't it? Last week?
Waiting for the water to go up.
Just trying to provide the best service we can.
Even the midnight guys got to take a shower before they go to work.
Underneath the tank.
That's it. Thank you.
Making a nickel.
So in your board packet, you should find the May and June financial reports, and the PowerPoint starts on page 92 of board books. I just wanted to give an update on the audit. As you might be aware, we had a hard deadline in June for our bond indenture, as well as our the audit required for our federal grants. there's been some discussion between DOA and the auditors about the OPEB, about other post-employment benefits actuarial report. My understanding from our auditors is that they do have, that the DOA actuaries have agreed to update the report. That was agreed to, but there has been no specific dates that the report will be due. So as soon as E&Y gets that information, it'll take them about a week before they can finalize, a week or two before they can finalize the audit report. So it's still possible to get the audit done by the end of July, but it really depends on whether or not DOA and their actuary are responsive. As you might be aware, the chair did send a letter to the governor asking her to see if she could do anything to help speed along the audit. One of the things that is an implication of the late audit is everyone in GWA will be losing, anyone that's had a low risk auditee status will lose that in FY23 because we all missed the deadline to upload audits to the federal grantor's website. So we'll continue to follow that up. The other thing I wanted to mention is, as you're aware, we did submit our true-up and request for rate relief to the PUC on June 1st. We did receive RFIs from them and responded timely on June 30th. I understand that we should have the hearing sometime in August, because we've, July's just around the corner.
Well, I think we met all of our targets.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's the PUC and their consultants who have.
Did they tell us who you want us to hire? No, I'm being serious.
They had to rely on Georgetown to review the true-up. But there has been no interface directly between us and Georgetown. It is being handled entirely by the administrative law. So there is some insulation, and he has committed to, keeping them on task, target. I think when we sent the responses for technical issues on their end, he may not have known that the responses were sent. I don't know if he was off island. He was off island. But we posted them online, but he was not aware. I'm not sure if the consultants, because who were also have gotten an email that the information was posted. I think they might have been aware, and so maybe it didn't necessarily delay them, but I think the ALJ is a bit leery about making it in July, and so that's.
Yeah, well, I mean, they know the new fiscal year, right? That's the request. And what's the rate that you're seeking?
27% is the ask to make up for what we've been using in
Yeah, this is your
the rate
case.
stabilization fund and ARPA relief funding, right? That should be coming out of revenues, and it has not been. So making that up, and then also reestablishing reserves, which is critical at this point. See by the expenses that we.
Is there a estimated, sample residential bill that you want to? Is it premature to discuss the proposed true-up and what it might look like for consumers, or you want to wait till the PC beats it up?
We're not prepared to discuss it today.
Oh, yeah,
but,
not today. That's fine. But I mean, you have filed. You have begun to post your. You posted your request already.
We did, and the all the required schedules, which includes the information you're asking about, has been issued. And just in regards to your question, we don't have any of that here today.
No,
but
no,
it
I'm
is
cool.
available.
I mean, that's why we have the work sessions, and I mean, maybe it's just. I'll defer to you on how you want to handle it. But at some point, ratepayers want to know, okay, this is the proposed request. PUC takes it up, and what might that be? Right?
So we if you recall, when we received the rate decision, the last rate decision, it was below what we requested. We advised them at that point, based on our projections at the time, that what they approved for fiscal '24
Was insufficient.
was insufficient and would likely be in double digits. What has happened since then has been inflationary pressures. We've had to use more of the rate stabilization fund than previously anticipated because of that, and especially with the increase in power costs. And so what we projected back then as we told them 5.5 isn't going to cut it. More likely it's going to be around 12, and even that is low. And so what we're seeking, even though it is in double digits, is just to get us to minimum debt service coverage and then a little bit to reestablish the
Rebuild your
reserves that we
reserve.
completed.
And that's been a bone of contention with Georgetown, right? This battle of reserves, right? Where we feel that they're running us too thin, and they don't, right?
Right.
And now the ALJ is sort of stepping in as the referee.
And recall that their recommendation at the last hearing, the PUC didn't take their recommendation.
Right.
Their recommendation was 0.
Right. Right.
Which
Well, to me, that's why you do the true-up. That's exactly why you do the true-up. So no one's going to have a perfect guess every fiscal year, but we've been running these companies for a long time. We have a good feel for it. We warned them that we think we needed a little more, and now you're attempting this true-up at this level. So, okay. Thank
Sir,
you.
the sample schedule is in the May work session, resolution 33.
Okay.
FY
I'll go look there.
2023,
I'll go
page
look there.
95.
That's sufficient. That's fine. That's fine. Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, so the first sheet shows the key financial indicators for May and June and April as comparison. Our debt service coverage was 1.34 at the end of June. As Miguel mentioned, short of by ARPA and the rate stabilization fund. Our days cash on hand were at 296. And you can look at Schedule G for our cash breakdown. Our month-to-date collection ratio was at 101%, and our year-to-date 97. Accounts receivable days were the same, and accounts payables days were the same for May and June. And there's receivable and payables breakdown also in the schedules. Schedule H and I have AR, and Schedule J has accounts payable. At the end of the month, we ended up with 357 FTEs. You see a picture of our demand. We are 8% less. We have 8% less demand in June as compared to last year. And year to date, we are under by 2%. And much of that is related to the the next slide shows a comparison of our revenues and expenditures month over month. And June, our revenues and expenditures were about the same. The next slide shows a pie chart of our demand, our water revenue and water demand by rate. So you might notice that we're starting to increase the hotel demand has been going up, and residential has gone down slightly. And then following that is wastewater. Again, because of the way that we bill our wastewater, our revenues pie chart looks slightly different than the demand. And then the next slide kind of shows our demand over the last 4 years. So this is a quarter end report, so I included a few more slides this month. So the next slide shows our 10 largest customers, June year to date. The interesting thing to me was Guam Power dropped off. And my understanding is Peppers went down a couple months, and I believe they were also using Navy water. So we're working with ops to try to understand what that is. The other thing is that we've also seen.
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. Yeah. Let us know what you find out.
I think in the June period, in order to help recovery, there was a switch. And,
It's kind of an
generally, I'm going to say, I know that they have to treat the water that they get, right, in order to use it for the power generation. And so the cost to treat our water are also higher. Then, in terms of water quality, I think there's a preference for the softer Navy water. But I don't think that had to do, that's a preference. I don't think that was a driving factor in this. I think it was just in order to.
Although it's year to date, right? If I'm reading the slide
Yeah.
correct, so it's been a trend, right? There.
So we're working with ops to try to understand why that. And then you can also. I believe they had a leak. And I think they asked us to help them identify it.
Lots of things seem to be able to.
And I think UOG might have also.
Lots of things seem to be able to escape from there. Water, people.
Yeah, I think UOG might have. And then you can
They
see
did.
the, the hotels, some of the hotels moving up, yeah.
Consumption at DOE should go down because shutting down all. You have no students, you have no need for water.
That's true. And then residential go up because they're at home.
And then the next slide is a picture of Waste Park. Customers, you see the military.
Well, that's interesting. So for solid waste, we bill the consultant, Gershman, Brickner, and Brown.
For the
Leaching.
land. The leach.
Right. No, I know that I thought we would bill GSWA. I'm seeing the name of isn't that the consultant for GSWA?
We still bill them, I think, for the land.
Curious why the consultant. Do they own it?
Actually, it's GSWA / GWA.
Wonder why they still attack themselves that way. But okay, I mean, whatever. Was GB? So who writes the check? GSWA or GBB? Exactly. So we know GBB gets a check. We don't think they write the check.
GBB writes it?
Oh, really? So maybe that's part of the bank. The what do you call it? Not the bankruptcy. The receivership. We can withhold. But maybe that's part of the receivership. The way it's structured up, that they're the customer. Interesting. Yeah. So
Okay, and then the next slide is a picture of our expenditures year to date. We did see salaries and benefits go up in June, primarily because of premium
overtime.
pay and overtime related to
Overtime,
typing. We
yeah.
about 386,000. So we still have some batches that haven't been processed. I will note that comparing month to month, for the month of June, power went down.
That's when the LEAC went down, right? You guys get the credit, the $100 credit too?
I think.
How much of the salaries and overtime?
So I believe we're estimating at 75%. So we've been meeting with FEMA. That we've had one big powwow with everybody, and then internally we're also going to make document it. And then we also cut the expenditures by water, wastewater, so that you can take a look at where we're spending the money.
They are on your,
Yeah, they were good at the end of the fiscal. Yeah, because but I think it's on, yeah, I think it's on Schedule 8.
Is there an issue for us?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, and then the next picture is just a comparison of revenues and demand. And then following that is it overlaid with collections. And then following that is a different kind of look of AR aging than Chris presented, but the slide on the left includes an act. Takes out an act. The next slide is a new slide. This is also, I'm still trying to figure out how to portray this, but this is, yeah, this is the CIPs. You had asked at one point, where are we spending the money? So the blue is water, the red is wastewater, and then the green is other. And this is broken up. Funding source. And then the last. Service.
And thank you for sharing the rating agency.
Pitch.
Oh, yeah, to mention that, yeah.
Anything else?
Mr. Chair, so I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm not, if I'm incorrect, that you and I assume JB will be preparing a typhoon report after action. And if I heard you right, you're thinking maybe in August we might get a peek at it?
Yes.
But also, Mr. Chairman doing it because he's not going to be here for the entire month of July. I was asking if you could just hold off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and to me, yeah, you need the time to gather the data and organize it. But yeah, I mean, we're all interested in lessons learned, right? Things we, yeah, very good. Thank you.
Okay. Nothing further.
Right. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good meeting. Thank you. Good job.